Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about The Outsider Season 1, Episode 5. It's called Tear Drinker. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always. So this episode actually did focus back over to Ralph, I think, a little bit. Obviously, there's still some Holly, but I think the weighting definitely felt like it shifted back towards
It did.
his side of things.
I am still feeling like I'm in a bit of a mid-season slump, though.
No, I can agree with that. If anything, like, I think the exposition dump last week was worse than anything in this episode, but I think overall the episode was just a bit more downbeat than as a whole.
It didn't have a lot going for it, did it? It's like, yeah, I mean, it's there, it's plodding along, but it's not terrible.
I mean, there's a couple of things, like, I guess my favourite stuff was probably Holly kind of putting some two and twos together, right? It was her kind of like, oh, all the family of this other family died after this event, so she looks into that and sees, hey, this is kind of weird. And then, of course, we have this other mysterious subplot in this episode of what seems to be the Jack of the previous town. You know, the person who it sounds like... In fact, the best I can describe Jack right now, you know, because obviously we were saying, like, is he infected? Is he becoming the new subject to the shapeshifting? Because he seems like he's different from Terry and the others.
I feel like I know exactly what you're going to say here.
Igor. He's the Igor of...
You thought I was going to say Renfield.
Yeah, you're going to say Renfield. You're going to say Dracula, yes.
I mean, apples and oranges, really, isn't it?
Yeah, same difference, really. But basically, yes, he's infected and is forced to help the Shapeshifter and is not necessarily killed, because we see this other guy is just kind of left behind, and this guy, you know, commits suicide. He holds someone up in public so the cops will shoot him. It's kind of his ending. So... really sad, but it does sound like it made him do something bad first, like it made him kill his mother first. From the way Holly described the crime scene, and she sort of theorized that whoever did it felt remorse and wasn't happy about doing it, and wanted them to, you know, not look at him and feel ashamed of what he was doing. So that stuff I thought was fairly interesting. Not a lot of new elements there for us, I don't think. I think we got to a point last episode where it's okay, right, so this thing feeds on the tears, as this episode puts it, of everyone around, and wants to keep going back. And Holly figuring that out, I think, was the most fun stuff. You know, when she's talking to the bartender, and she's just kind of throwing out these ideas, like, okay, so if you were this thing...
That scene was a little weird. Like, I get that Holly's weird, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
That's okay. But the bartender just absolutely just going along with this completely, 100%.
Hey, she's used to being hit on by drunk men. This is like the most exciting thing that's happened to her on the bar in ages.
Sure, but absolutely not questioning a thing about this. And then be like, yeah, sure, I'll drive you around the city for $200. I mean, sure, you have money, but she doesn't question a single thing. That was like, this is weird.
Even if she spends like $40, $50 on gas for the day, like she's still up $150. That's solid. You know?
Yeah, it's all right.
Anyway, so I like that side of things. Some of the other stuff, one scene that particularly bothered me is there's a scene with Ralph and Eunice in the car, and it's after, so we have this big thing where Jeannie has like a visit from the Shapeshifter, right? And it's kind of like what happened to the little girl, and she's kind of not sure if it was a dream at first, but then she's kind of sure it was, and Ralph kind of dismisses it, thinking, no, this is a dream, you were half asleep, you stepped in this glass, you know, you're saying the exact same thing that little girl said, and to her that's proof that it's real, because hey, how could we both have the same dream? But he's saying, no, you knew about this, you were influenced by her dream and what she told you.
There's a logic to that.
Yeah, it doesn't feel...
People are very susceptible.
It doesn't feel like he's like being ridiculous with the way he's kind of, you know, the way he's kind of deducting what this actually is in his mind. It feels like it makes a lot of sense. There's no reason why, because he's a cop and he sees no evidence that anyone broke in. Like, so his logic is telling him that didn't happen.
And then he starts telling her that, hey, you sleepwalk all the time. You just don't always know about it.
The problem more I have with this is that the drawing she does of what she thought she saw, does this not kind of look very similar to the drawing the kid did? You know, the car thief kid from last episode?
It does, absolutely. And I think because Ralph does take a second look at it, so I feel like he's making that connection as well. But
then he sort of does a thing where he gets Paddy Constantine, you know, from the strip club. He gets his prints checked as if he thinks it's him, rather than, you know, phoning the other guys and says, hey, can I see that drawing again and compare these two? Isn't this weird that my wife drew the exact same thing and she's not seen it?
There was something, I don't know if it was last episode or the episode before, where it felt like it didn't follow up on something in that episode. And I feel like this is the same here, where it played to me like he'd made that connection because he definitely took a moment to look back at the drawing. He had another look at it.
No, I agree. I thought in the moment that's what he was thinking, but then what he did after that didn't correlate with that.
Yeah. So to me, it felt like he was dismissing it because of in the moment. He's like, no, that can't be right, and he's gone to his assumption. And the next part of this is him coming back around and going, okay, I'm gonna have to realize, I'm gonna have to accept there's a possibility this is the same thing. But we don't get that here. It's presumably in the next
No.
episode, and I feel like honestly between these two episodes that we've just had, I do feel like this might be just too long. The episode stretched out pacing wise.
It's very possible. And the scene I was getting to that I didn't really like that much was he's in the car with Eunice, and Eunice, upon hearing about this dream, tells this story about his great grandmother or whoever it is. His grandfather and his great granduncle or whatever served in the Korean War, and this story about how she had this premonition in a dream about like one of them dying, and it came true, but the other two were safe. And he's like, "Hey, dreams are premonitions, man." And he says it in such a sort of matter of fact way. I was like, this is weird. why are you all of a sudden a believer of premonitions and dreams?
Yeah,
I don't know.
this is one of those, like, you can really logically write that off as, oh, hang on, all three of her sons were at war and she was terrified of losing one of them. That sounds like something someone would dream about, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily make it a premonition. It's correlation. It's not causation.
And maybe if we'd gotten more hints that his character was spiritual before, or believed in this kind of stuff, or had these kind of ideas, like that'd be fine. It'd play okay. But that's just like it came out of nowhere. That he's like, oh no, man, this sounds. Sometimes dreams can be premonitions. You got to take them seriously.
Do you know what I think makes it more annoying?
Yeah,
is that we know it wasn't a dream.
If it was a mystery to us, it may actually be intriguing to an extent, but it's not. We know it wasn't a dream. We saw it was there.
Oh, was this a dream? Is this a premonition?
Because at first, because when she first wakes up and he sees like the cut in her foot and he sees the blood coming through, he's like, "Hey, you cut your foot. Did you? What happened?" And at first she's not really sure. And I thought, I kind of like the idea of them her, it playing like she's not entirely sure if she saw something or not. Like it does kind of feel like a dream to her, and she dismisses it herself. And I can understand why she would do that, because maybe she would say to herself what he says to her later, that, oh well, the girl told me about her dream. I'm kind of having these faint memories of it, right? Until maybe something else happens that kind of prods her into admitting that something might have actually happened. But because of her fairly quickly sort of saying, no, I think I actually experienced this. There was someone here. He said this. It just everything after that felt kind of weird to me, and how it handled it. So that stuff was a little bit odd. Holly at one point phones and asks him to get photos of the Terry's, where he's buried, his grave site and the surrounding areas. And Glory's kind of like, this is weird, but yeah, whatever. And we have this moment where Eunice is like, hey, holy shit, that's the barn where we found the clothes. What the hell? Like right over there. And it's this idea that he always camps somewhere near the gravesite so he can feed on the misery of anyone who goes to, visit and whatnot.
And that seems to be part of what we've seen in the woods with all the electrical appliances.
Yes. Oh, that stuff's still kind of weird.
But, yeah, he didn't like the lamp, I guess.
He didn't like the lamp, and Jack gets really upset because he's like, he doesn't want to be punished for not doing the right thing, which presents him as more aware of what he's doing than he was last episode. Because last episode I really thought he was kind of just sleepwalking through it as opposed to consciously. Whereas this episode made it very clear that when he steps out of line, that thing in the back of his neck hurts. It's like the shapeshifter can send like a pain signal or whatever through it, and it'll, he's on the floor crying, his eyes out, and he's in pain. And he picks a fight with Ralph when Ralph asks about the barn, because obviously after this he wants to know about the barn. This is like the baby shower, and then the cop who had the baby gets really mad at him and is like, what's wrong with you? I did have one funny line here actually, where she says, maybe you've been drinking too much ginger, maybe I think I like you better when you've been drinking booze. And then he says, yeah, I think I like you better when I've been drinking booze too. I actually thought that was a funny line. But
it was, yeah.
Yeah, and he comes back to Ralph to try and apologize like the next day, and he wants to help, he wants to be in on the investigation. But of course, all I'm thinking at this point is that the shapeshifter wants him in on it so that he can be close to it and,
obviously, yeah,
sabotage from within.
Or even just have a heads up as to where they're gonna come looking.
Yeah. So I mean, I am excited about Holly coming to the town next episode and being there with them and actually interacting with the characters. Now, I think a lot of them are going to think she's crazy, but I think her actually, because the one thing we've not had yet, because this shapeshifter does seem to be aware that what Ralph's doing and keeps telling him to stop. Multiple examples of that now, but we've not seen what he makes of Holly yet. and that Holly's maybe the kind of just the right type of person to counteract him in a weird way, because she thinks differently than everyone else does. So there's some potential good elements there. Because I think, as much as I hated the exposition dump last episode, I did like a lot of the thematic stuff that it kind of tied into Ralph's story. This episode, we get a flashback here of him being drunk and, and Jeannie being upset. We get a scene of, at the end, the weird scene where he sees his son tell him that he has to let him go. And I get what this is doing, in the sense that if this is about him having to let go of his misery so that the shapeshifter can't feed on him, so he can fight him. Like, I like that idea. I don't know if I actually needed this particular scene, though, of his dead son talking to him.
I thought there was another read on it for me as well, as more like this is being come from, the shapeshift spirit of, hey, he's doing this out of motivation because of the guilt over his son. So, okay, no, let it go, and he won't keep coming after me with such a vengeance.
That's possible. I was thinking shapeshifter when he first said dad, but when I actually heard what the message was, I'm leaning more towards, whether it's actually his dead son in his head or if it's just like his own mind, giving it to him. But I feel like the shapeshifter wouldn't want him to get over it. But unless, like you say, he wants it because he'll think that'll make him drop it.
Well, yeah, because the shapeshifter doesn't seem to be able to feed on anyone, only his particular victims. So I don't see, Ralph being miserable doesn't actually directly benefit him in any way.
Well, I guess it was just for the warning, but earlier on when it felt like he was in the office, like stalking his wife, and then showed up at night, I actually thought he was starting to feed on them because he just happened to find them in this miserable state.
That's possible, yeah, you could be onto something.
But then the rest of it, it was just kind of like, no, it was more about the warning. But so I don't actually know for sure, but there's something there, perhaps. The ending played weird for me. Joe, it's funny because we've compared this to The Night Of a couple of times, and it was actually just between this episode and the last one that I realised that the writer of the show is actually the same writer as The Night Of.
Oh, is it?
And I think what's interesting is that The Night Of started with a very strong episode, although I think admittedly the direction was more, the to the credit there than the writing was. The writing was fine, but it was the direction that really made it sing. I think, much like that show, though, that one limited season did have this slump in the middle. It felt like it kind of, really kind of plateaued into an okay show and then rose back up at the end. And it's hard not to feel like we're getting the same thing here in the middle, where it's kind of sinking a bit, and it's okay.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, I personally felt like Night Of never got quite as low as this is feeling over these last couple.
That's fair.
And I am hoping it is just, this slump in the middle, and it is going to get better again for the last couple.
I'm fairly confident it will be. I mean, it is worth mentioning, this is episode 5 of 10, so we do have, the full half.
Oh, it's full 10, okay.
Yeah.
I thought this was only 8, okay. Then, what I said earlier about this maybe feeling a bit too long definitely concerns me now.
Yeah, maybe like condensing a few of these middle episodes together might have helped, yeah.
Night Of, if I remember, was only 6?
8.
Was that 8? Okay.
That was 8, yeah.
So that was shorter than this is, and that had definitely a noticeable dip in the middle.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see if we see a similar pattern here, and it's maybe an example of like HBO should be like, no, condensed. I mean, is it even HBO? It may just be the writer as a fault of the writers that he keeps doing this, that he doesn't necessarily understand the right length for his own stories.
I think at that point they need a new editor to kind of take that outside view and tell them, no, condense this down, tighten it up.
Yeah, but at the same time, are HBO happy to get 10? I mean, who's pushing for 10? Is it HBO or is it the writer? Like, which one's wanting the 10?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say.
For all we know, he came in and said, "I've got an 8-episode idea, and HBO will give you the green light, but it has to be 10." And he's like, "Oh, okay, I guess I can stretch it out to 10." Like,
it's possible.
And do you blame him for taking that deal? I wouldn't. I mean, I'd do it. Sure.
No, I'd do it as well. I blame the writer then because I feel, he has obviously written it to this standard, and I mean, he's getting paid at the end of the day. But could it have been better? Yeah, probably, just by cutting some out. And maybe that is HBO kind of pushing for that amount. Maybe it's like, oh, that fills up our schedule nicely.
Yeah, maybe it's Westworld's back on this date. This needs to be 10 weeks. Or 9 because it was 2 in the first week. But you know what I mean. Yeah, this needs to be 9.
Like, we know our schedule. This is what we need.
Yeah, it could very well be that, and or whatever. But like, it does feel like it's spinning its wheels just a little bit in the middle, and I feel like we're repeating some of them at the same points. And I don't think this episode gave me enough of a full meal on its own. There was a couple of things in there I liked that I felt like did advance things a little bit, and I do like this adding to the overall story, but I don't think... Like, I think last week, despite that one really bad exposition dump, had a lot more meat on the bone for me to really get into and digest.
I agree. I think it's frustrating because there's absolutely nothing in this episode that is anywhere near as bad as that moment last
No.
episode. But it's just there's nothing really exciting in this episode. There's nothing to grab my attention that I come out and go, oh, that was what I got from this episode. There's a couple of little things here or there, like you say, but overall, I feel like this could have been all the information in this could have probably been cut down to about 15 minutes, and I'd have enjoyed it equally as much.
Yeah, we should mention that Paddy Considine's character does have a weird moment in the bar where he kind of zones out and he's kind of remembering when Maitland was in there. Because we were questioning last week if he did get cut and if there was anything that happened to him when they met, and we weren't really sure. And I don't know if that's a fault of the writing that we never actually were aware of that before, or if it wants it to be confusing. I'm not sure, but this moment definitely made it feel like no, something did kind of happen to him, and he's kind of reacting.
Is interesting because that contradicts the pattern, which has always been, the next victim is from another state, right? It's always traveling. So it always gets a visitor and then follows them back home. So if it has targeted someone else here in the same town, that would be unusual.
I did like how the visit of the shapeshifter was shot, at least, and maybe it was just me, but did it sound like Mendelssohn's voice to you that was doing the voice of the?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I was hearing Mendelssohn's voice, which would imply that he's turning into Mendelssohn. He's turning into Ralph. So
yeah. That was 100% who I was thinking, and I completely forgot to mention it as we were talking about it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that he's turning to Ralph, or was it supposed to make it feel more dreamlike? And she's hearing that voice. It's her perspective. I don't know.
Here's a question:
because
we've assumed up until now that he has to get some DNA, he has to cut someone or something, right? As far as we know, like, we don't think he's got Ralph's DNA. So if he is turning into Ralph, then how is he doing it? Or
maybe we're wrong, which is possible. Which maybe that leads into the son at the end. Is that just the shapeshifter kind of having changed to kind of trying to get him off the scent?
I don't think so, because if he's becoming... Because it seems like a long process. It seems like he slowly becomes the person, and then after he's been the person for a while, he deteriorates for a while. He becomes less formed. It doesn't seem like something you can just quickly opt in and out of from person to person.
No, it's possible, you're right. The only way I could even think about it is if he can change at will, but only for shorter periods. And, and the kind of deformed state that we see him is more just natural state when he's not changed into something else. But that doesn't track as well, I admit.
No, my gut tells me that the ending of this is not the shapeshifter, is that the son's not the shapeshifter. Even though that's obviously a possibility because we're dealing with a shapeshifter, I don't think it's him. It didn't play like
actually
that.
agree. I think it probably isn't. But I'm just trying to line up with the visit sounding like Ralph, because like I say, we haven't seen any evidence of a cut that he's had, or it doesn't follow the pattern. But then again, we jumped to
that conclusion because Terry got cut. That is the only reason why we jumped to that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, maybe he gets DNA other ways. Could he sneak in and steal his toothbrush? Like, is that a way to get DNA? Like, can you do it that way? There's other potentials. It's worth mentioning as well, the cop who had the baby does have like a nightmare herself and kind of like is worried that her baby's gone for a minute, and it turns out it's just, the husband's got the baby out on the porch, no big deal. But I did kind of take that between that and Jeannie and the other. It feels like the panic and the fear of something happening is spreading throughout the characters in a weird way. Kind of like the misery spreads. It feels like there's also an anticipation element of it that's spreading. So, curious to see if it plays with that a little bit more in the coming episodes. Another thing I think maybe worth mentioning is that Holly does spend the night with the security guard dude, who does seem to be investigating based on some of her notes that she's left behind. So just thought I'd mention it.
See if that goes anywhere.
Yeah, that might gloss over it, but yeah, I mean the performance is still very good. I like Holly's performance especially. But yeah, definitely a slump episode. This is definitely the middle of the season, and it feels like it's, it feels like it's spinning its wheels a little bit, and it's not quite making the leaps forward in the plot that it feels like it should be.
I hope it picks up sooner than I fear, because obviously we had 3, pretty good ones at the start. I would say, it was on an upward trend for the first 3.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then 4 and 5 are like this. I'm hoping it's not just, the last 3 that are good again, and we've got to get through another couple more like this. I'm hoping that we're back up next time would be nice.
It's possible. Again, I would give 4 some credit, because I actually think 4 was good, barring the one big thing that was wrong with it.
I think I definitely recall having a few more problems with it than you did, but this was significantly worse. I mean, 4 looks better in retrospect after this. I'll definitely agree with that.
There were good character stuff last week, but this one was definitely the weakest episode so far. But hey, that is episode 5 of The Outsider. Let us know what you think of this one in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the show and everything we do, head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv. And you can go and support us over there for as little as $1 per month. Get some bonuses for your troubles. Otherwise, check out the content we're doing. Me and Tara are reviewing Star Trek Picard every week, so if you're interested in reviews of that, that's going on. Me and Connor have been still working through Lost Space, where we've got a few episodes left of that from Netflix. Lock and Key starting this week as well from Netflix, so we'll be checking that out. We also tried Ragnarok, which is a foreign original from Netflix. Did the first couple of that. We won't be continuing that because episode 2 kind of, confirmed that we didn't really want to keep watching it, but if you're curious and you want to find out what it is, go check out the review episode 1, see if you're into it. But that is us, so thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?